It's now 2024. You might have spent last night celebrating the new year with all of your best friends. You might be super hungover right now. You might have spent last night alone by yourself, lonely, lonesome, wishing you had some company in your parents' basement. But none of that matters right now because if you're listening to this video, if you're watching this video, you're a Cardano person and we've got to talk about what's coming over the next 24 months, and that's the Cardano Dragon Cycle. If you thought the Dragon Cycle was just something your significant other experiences every several weeks, or if you're finding value in these videos, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Well, guys, it's 2024. New year, new changes. I think it's high time this channel becomes 100% Fibonaccios. That's right. We're just going to do technical chart analysis all the time, every video. Kidding, kidding. Of course, you know how I feel about Fibonaccios. We're not going to be doing Fibonaccios, but we are going to be talking about what happens over the next 24 months. So, over the next 24 months, we're going to experience something that's not always happening in crypto, something that hasn't been happening over the last couple of years. And of course, that is the Bitcoin halving, which is going to be happening this year in 2024. And then for the rest of this 24-month period, for the rest of 2024 and 2025, we're going to experience all the things that happen after that Bitcoin block reward is cut in half. We're also going to be experiencing the year of the dragon or Naga or Monkan, depending on what part of the world you're most exposed to, what part of Asia in particular you're most exposed to. We're going to have the year of the dragon, the year of the Naga, the year of the Monkan, and then that's going to be followed by the year of the snake. We're going to be having a Bitcoin block reward happening during the year of the dragon. And then we're going to have the year of the snake. If you've never been through one of these cycles before, I think a lot of people would agree. A lot of people who have been around crypto for a while would agree. This is kind of the most exciting time to be in crypto. The next 24 months, this is the big show. This is where all the crazy stuff happens. The bear cycle, the bear winter, the crypto winter we just went through, that's the boring part. That's the part that sucks. What's coming up next is the fun part. And there are a lot of good things that happen and a lot of bad things that happen during crypto bull cycles. This whole 24-month period we're about to go into. And don't get me wrong here, I'm not making any predictions. I never make predictions about the crypto markets, but there has been a very pronounced pattern. We've had Bitcoin block reward happenings many times in crypto already. We experienced this in November 2012, in July 2016, in May 2020, and we're going to experience it this year again in 2024. And the same things seem to happen in the rest of the crypto space, including in Cardano, at least during those periods that Cardano has existed for. The same thing has happened. Similar things, I should say. I shouldn't say the same, but similar things have happened in the altcoin space, all the rest of crypto besides Bitcoin. We've seen good things largely, and it doesn't happen to every coin ecosystem, every layer one ecosystem like Cardano every single cycle. We have winners and losers. So far, Cardano has done great. The Bitcoin halving years and the year after have been great for Cardano so far. Good things have happened in Cardano during these periods because Cardano is one of the big layer one ecosystems, despite what people in our competitor ecosystems would say, despite what people in Ethereum would say, what people in Avalanche, Polkadot, Solana, when they're not turning that off and on switch. Despite what they would say during, about Cardano, Cardano is one of the big top 10 ecosystems. And we talk a lot, especially on this channel, about technology and innovation and what Cardano is striving to do for the entire world, create this level economic playing field for the entire world. We talk a lot about those things, but we're still correlated to Bitcoin in such a way that the biggest thing that happens in Cardano periodically is the events that follow on from this Bitcoin halving event that happens about every 4 years. I know what you're thinking right now. Okay, if this happens every 4 years, why is this one the dragon cycle? Why is this one different? Why is this Cardano and crypto's dragon cycle? How is this any different than any of the other times we've gone through this whole 4 year cycle in crypto? It's because of something that might be announced in the next couple of days. There's a lot of rumbling, a lot of rumors, a lot of whispers that it might be announced in just the next couple of days, or it might not be announced for like 10 days or for a couple months or ever. We don't really know. But there's a lot of whispers. We might hear something the next couple of days that is not exactly what we would wish for in crypto. I think all of us in crypto, especially us in Cardano, people who think about sort of the ideals of crypto, it's not exactly what we would choose, but it might be one of the most impactful things that's ever happened for mainstream adoption in crypto. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But before we talk about that, since it's New Year's Day, and I know a lot of you are just pure crypto people. You only think about crypto, no outside interests. You don't care about anything I'm about to say. That's fine. If you're Mr. I only care about crypto, I just code all day. I'm in Haskell all day. I don't do anything else. I don't care about my body. I am not interested at all in this. That's fine. Just like zone out for a second here. The rest of us are human beings who live in human bodies, and I think it's a good thing to maintain that human body, that container you have to live in. If you're Mr. I only care about Haskell, you still have to live in a human body, I assume, unless you're an AI. You still have to live in a human body. So I'm going to talk about something having to do with the maintenance of our human bodies. And I know for the rest of us who are humans living in human bodies, we also care about the maintenance of those bodies. And it is New Year's resolution time, and a lot of people are thinking about health. So I'm going to admit to something. I don't normally like to talk about myself at all on this channel, but I'm going to admit to something just because it is something that's impactful on my life. And it has to do with this post right here. So, this post, if you are at all familiar with that face, you know that is Greta T, who is, depending on which camp you're in, either a renowned or a notorious climate activist. And if you know anything about her, you know she is certainly not holding a sign that says, don't forget, January is World Carnivore Month. It's definitely a fake manipulated photo. She's definitely not holding up that sign. But I posted this today because it is 4 years for me of being a carnivore, only eating carnivorous things, only eating animal products. There are some exceptions. I eat some like non-caloric things. Like actually I drink non-caloric things. Like I drink coffee every day. For the last 6 months, I've drank kava instead of alcohol, not for any reason. I actually didn't mean to stop drinking alcohol. I meant to just like start drinking kava along with alcohol occasionally, but I've been enjoying the kava so much that I haven't drank any alcohol. So, kava doesn't really have any calories in it, as near as I can tell. Coffee doesn't have much in terms of calories in it. These aren't things that I use for nourishment, but all the things I use for nourishment are pretty much animal products. I just eat the animals, which I know sounds horrific for some of you because society over the last, you know, 10 years has certainly taken a turn more toward plants. But there's a growing community of us who are into eating the animals, right? And at the outset, I'll say that if you are a person who eats plants, that's probably a step up from the modern Western diet. Your diet is probably, even in my opinion, and I'm no health professional, so take this with a grain of salt. I'm just a guy out here. But your diet is probably much better than the person who eats the modern Western diet, which, as near as I can tell, is pretty much just seed oils and excess sugars, right? We can have all kinds of debates about seed oils, whether you think they're bad or good, and sugars, whether you think they're bad or good. But there's a growing contingent of us. So I'm not condemning you plant people, who are avoiding processed foods and not suffering the ills of metabolic syndrome that seems to be affecting, populations in the West, like to an extreme degree. And we're not going to go into too much detail on this because it's not that kind of channel, but it is New Year's Day. So I'm going to address this a little bit. So, plant people, I'm not condemning you. I think you're much better than the people eating all the processed foods. And you can kind of see this if you just walk down the street in a lot of Western societies. Obviously, something has gone wrong. People were much fitter before the introduction of a lot of these processed foods. And you people who are not eating those, whatever diet you're on, you're probably a couple rungs up the ladder better than the people who are just eating the normal Western diet these days. Having said that, there's a growing contingent of us who are just eating animals. We're just eating a carnivore diet. And there are even doctors now who are carnivore doctors who are enthusiasts of this kind of diet. And those doctors are producing some very interesting medical analysis and evidence. We saw this in 2020 with the publication by the American College of Cardiology of a giant study of studies, a giant meta study of all the evidence available on whether or not saturated fat was bad. Here is that analysis. This is the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. This isn't just some guy out there somewhere on YouTube. American College of Cardiology did what they call a state of the art review. This is where all of these researchers took all of the evidence they could find, everything they could find on the consumption of saturated fat. And if you're as old as I am, I'm old now, you remember your entire life, they've told you that saturated fat was bad. It was like, eat all of the sugar you want, drink 55 gallons of fruit juice per day, eat all of those Fruit Loops, eat every grain you can get your hands on. But whatever you do, don't eat saturated fat. You will definitely die within 30 seconds if you eat a hamburger. Touch any kind of steak, you will die instantly, instant death. It's like a death ray. But things are changing now. So we have an article like this that comes out in 2020 where they take all the evidence they can find in the history of Western medicine on saturated fat. Here's the conclusion they came to. They said, hey, saturated fat in the matrix of whole fat dairy or unprocessed red meat equals no increased cardiovascular or diabetes risk. This is the exact opposite of what they've told us our whole life. They're basically saying you can eat these things and there's no increased risk of cardiovascular disease or diabetes risk. The totality of evidence does not support further limiting the intake of these foods. The recommendation to limit dietary saturated fatty acid intake has persisted despite mounting evidence to the contrary. Most recent meta-analyses of randomized trials and observational studies found no beneficial effects of reducing saturated fatty acid intake on cardiovascular disease and total mortality, and instead found protective effects against stroke. So, and then they talk about LDLs and, small, dense LDL particles versus other types of LDL particles. And, I'm sure they get into the effects of HDLs, the possibly protective effects of HDLs, all those kind of things. If you are somebody who's interested in lipidology, you can get into the study. I've read the whole thing. I've gone through the whole study. You can get the whole study here at the Journal of American College of Cardiology. It's not one of those things where you have to have some kind of a special subscription to read the actual study and you can only get the abstract. This is actually the whole study. There are things like this coming out now, along with things like the very recent, as of I think the last several weeks, we got this thing called the lean mass hyperresponder study. And it's this new mount, like they describe right here in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. There is mounting evidence to the contrary of this thing we've been told our whole lives, that saturated fat, at least in the matrix of things like dairy and meat, basically the things you eat on the carnivore diet, we've always been told they're bad. And now the American College of Cardiology is saying there's mounting evidence that that may not be true. So, like I said, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not trying to give anyone any advice on what they should be eating. However, I do want to make people aware there's a growing contingent of us who are recklessly, willfully eating animals, just animals, even. And the American College of Cardiology is not exactly saying we're wrong there. And also, I've only died several times per year for the last 4 years. So, just so everybody knows. Back to crypto. So here's the crazy thing that might be happening in the next couple of days. And you've probably been living under a rock if you're in crypto and you don't know about this, but we might get Bitcoin, we might get like a dozen crypto ETFs in the next 10 days. The date that everybody's looking at is January 10th. And it's not exactly clear whether or not we're actually going to get a decision on January 10th. Some people are looking more at a date that's clear out in like March. But there's also a lot of whispering going on right now that we might get an announcement in the next couple of days. This is crypto. It has been very common for there to be these big whisper campaigns that, that something's going to happen and then nothing happens. And this SEC doesn't really like crypto. This is the most anti crypto executive branch we've ever seen. The current White House and the SEC that it controls are the most anti-crypto we've ever seen for sure. So I wouldn't expect them to do what crypto expects, but a lot of people are expecting an announcement in the next couple of days. And one of the reasons that people have been expecting for a long time that we'd finally get a Bitcoin ETF has been the involvement of gigantic Wall Street institutions. Some of the biggest owners of things just writ large, they own everything. And the the institution that owns more than anybody else out of all the institutions that own anything is BlackRock. They own more of everything than anyone. And the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF was assigned to a lot of people in crypto that it was actually going to happen. Recently, we saw this. BlackRock updated its S1 and named its authorized participants, who include Jane Street and JP Morgan. The poster here points out that's kind of ironic because we've heard nothing from Jamie Dimon, the head of JP Morgan, except that he hates crypto, wishes Congress would shut down crypto, very much not in favor of crypto. But we do have these giant institutions now involved in Bitcoin ETFs. The biggest Wall Street institutions you could possibly name: JP Morgan, BlackRock, Jane Street. It's certainly looking like they think they're not wasting their time. And there are a lot of rumors we might hear in the next couple of days. So, is this exactly what we want in crypto? Certainly not. I don't know too many people who I consider to be true crypto people who are like, man, I just really want BlackRock to own as much Bitcoin as possible, as much Ethereum as possible, as much Cardano as possible. We're not really like hankering for Wall Street to get super deep, to get like knee deep in crypto. We've always known it was going to happen though. And the flip side of that is that along with Wall Street getting deep in crypto was going to be the mainstream herds, the mainstream suddenly having access to crypto through things like their retirement accounts. The big dream has always been, hey, what if our parents could invest a little bit of their portfolios into crypto? Obviously that wasn't going to happen through, any kind of like direct ownership of crypto. Or I should say it hasn't happened. We haven't seen, retirees being able to put significant portions of their portfolios into crypto. It's always been growing. It's always been growing. We get more and more mainstream adoption every cycle, but we've never seen this giant thing where like every retiree has 10% of their portfolio in crypto, or even 1%, or even half of 1%. But if we get a Bitcoin ETF, all of a sudden, those kinds of things start becoming possible when these crypto ETFs suddenly exist for retirees to include in their portfolios, all of a sudden we might actually have that mainstream rush into crypto that we've always dreamed about. I mean, I think we've all done a good job. All of us in crypto have done a good job of making people aware of crypto. Like pretty much everybody knows what Bitcoin is. Not everybody, but almost everybody knows what Bitcoin is. And if you said to somebody like, "Hey, you could devote a tiny part of your retirement portfolio to crypto," they'd be like, even if they, are very unsure about crypto, they'd probably be like, "I'll consider it. I'll consider a tiny percentage of my portfolio." This might actually happen now with this ETF. We might be entering this new era in crypto where it's sort of like an ADBC thing where suddenly we have sort of before ETFs and after ETFs. This might be a profoundly impactful event in crypto where all of a sudden everybody's grandma has a little bit of crypto in their portfolio. And sure, we're not talking about Cardano here. These are definitely Bitcoin ETFs, but that was always going to be the first step. Bitcoin is the original and biggest. Now we can call it an ecosystem. It never even used to be an ecosystem because there was never anything in it. Now we have ordinals and what are they calling it? BRC20. We have, it's actually going to it's developing right now into its own ecosystem. So we can call Bitcoin an ecosystem now. And the hallmark asset in that ecosystem and in all of crypto is going to be involved in these ETFs from a dozen different institutions, among which are the biggest asset owners on earth. This might be a gigantic moment for mainstream adoption of crypto. And along with that is going to come maybe something more than our normal 4-year cycle. Maybe this does turn into the dragon cycle where all of crypto finally goes crazy the way that we've always dreamed it will. What is this going to look like? In the past, during the peaks of these 4-year cycles, we've seen chaos and craziness and greed and corruption and theft and rug pulls, all the horrible things. This might be the cycle where you have to keep the crab claw even tighter than normal. This might be the one where you gotta keep your little lobster claw tight on those ADAs, because there's going to be a lot of, if we have this crazy dragon cycle because of the ETF and everything that's going on, and it's an election year, so there might be more stimulus than normal, and there might be presidential candidates making a lot of promises about what they're going to do for crypto. There might be a lot of very positive sentiment. And along with that positive sentiment and this booming interest in crypto, which might happen, we're probably going to get more rug pulls and more theft and more of those scams where you think you're buying an NFT and actually it's emptying your entire wallet. Over the next 24 months, you should probably keep the lobster claw even tighter. I'm not telling you to not make your own bets, to not bet on your weird DeFi coin that you're so excited about. That's your decision to make. You make those kind of decisions. But I am saying that if this turns into the giant dragon cycle that we've all dreamed of for so long, it might be a really good idea to keep the lobster claw even tighter on your ADA. Speaking of dragons, you already know we've got one in the Senate, and not all dragons are good. Definitely the one we've got in the Senate is not good for crypto. She hates crypto. She hates crypto with a passion. Crypto is her number one most hated thing. I think it's questionable. If you asked her, who do you hate more, crypto or terrorists? She'd probably be like, this is a tough decision. I don't know. They're both so bad. She really hates crypto. And she's sponsoring a bill. We've talked in the past about how she's very unsuccessful at getting bills passed. She loves to create bills, sponsor them, doing various things, talk about them, create anti-crypto armies to theoretically enforce them. It seems that the anti-crypto armies are just like imaginary in her own dragon mind, but it's the kind of thing she likes to do. So she's not good at getting these bills passed, but she has passed a new one that people in crypto really hate. And we won't get into the details of that bill right now, but it basically would be a roundabout way to just like ban crypto. All the crypto except for the crypto happening in the ETFs, those would be fine. The BlackRock ETF Bitcoin would be fine, but the rest of crypto, very, very bad. Here is a video, an interesting video of one of the co-sponsors of her bill, U.S. Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, apparently. Doesn't he look like a guy who knows all about crypto and digital currency? I look at him and think, this is a man who knows everything there is to know about crypto. Obviously, the opposite. So what he says in this video, implies in this video, what people are taking from this video is him making an admission that the banks basically helped them write the bill that would, in a roundabout manner, basically ban all of crypto except for the ETF crypto that's going on. This and that's kind of his rationale for supporting the bill. He's sort of like, hey, the bankers or the banking industry is telling us that crypto's bad and they helped us write the bill. So certainly this is the right way to go. But this is kind of like if you went to all the internal combustion automobile manufacturers, if you went to Toyota and Nissan and Ford and GM and Mercedes and BMW and Volkswagen, Porsche, and if you were like, "Hey, would you guys be cool if we just banned Tesla? What if we just sort of, get rid of Elon Musk and we ban Tesla? Would you guys be okay with that? We'll just pass a law that Elon's no good and Tesla is shut down." Like, they'd probably be like, "Yes. Yes, we support it." This is the same thing. Of course the banks want to ban crypto. It's an alternate banking system. It's a whole alternate financial system. Of course they want to ban it because they don't own it. They own the current banking system. They are ultimately the members that make up the Federal Reserve. They're the customers and members of the Federal Reserve event, ultimately. Of course, they don't want a secondary competing system getting any bigger. We finally got to the point where they, you know, see us as a big enough threat that they're not just joining in, but joining in their own weird institutionalized way in these ETFs and also trying to ban everything that's not their weird institutionalized version of crypto. Meanwhile, Cardano just continues its march of innovation while the rest of crypto is obsessed with this ETF and how much traction the Dragon's anti crypto bill is getting. Cardano is doing things like Midnight and Voltaire. And one of the latest developments in Voltaire has been us learning a little bit about this Gov tool. The Gov tool, according to this post from IOHK, IOG now. The Gov tool is a vital platform in supporting governance described in SIP 1694. This new tool enables users to test features available in SanchoNet, paving the way for a more inclusive and transparent governance system. And we're starting to hear more and more about what Voltaire is going to look like, and SanchoNet is out there, and people are starting to understand what it's going to look like if you want to be a DREP, all those kind of things, how governance is actually going to look. This is all going on very busily behind the scenes. It looks like IOG is working at breakneck speed to get Voltaire out there. I think there are probably a lot of reasons for this. It's sort of the last big thing that IOG has been talking about for a long time. Voltaire was always on the roadmap from the very start. Voltaire was always something that had to be accomplished. I think it's sort of like IOG making good on that promise. At the same time, gets IOG off the hook in some ways. It decentralizes the last pieces. I'll say the one of the big last pieces of the blockchain ecosystem. We talked in the last video about how the core code repositories have moved from IOG to the MBO intersect. And now we're looking at full community governance of the blockchain. This is very helpful, in my opinion, from a regulatory perspective for IOG. It's very hard to make an argument that Cardano is not extremely, extremely decentralized. We already know validation of the blockchain is very, very decentralized. Once you have governance actually in the hands of the community, like it's going to be with SIP 1694 and full Voltaire governance, it's going to be very, very hard to say that there's any basis to go after Cardano when you've got Ethereum sitting there. And what we've seen so far is, for various historical reasons that were covered ad nauseum in the Ripple litigation, looks like the SEC is not going after Ethereum. We can say so far, we haven't seen any evidence that they're going to be going after Ethereum. So you have to ask the question, how could they go after Cardano? This is very helpful for IOG if the SEC does not go after Cardano. It's very helpful for IOG to no longer have the reins of governance in the ecosystem. So this is a pretty big step for Cardano. Meanwhile, things are not going well for one of Cardano's biggest competitors, at least in terms of people realizing what's actually under the hood. So to understand this next piece, you have to understand what ETH Zurich is. I think a lot of people in crypto, probably almost everybody in crypto, understands that the founding of Ethereum and the Ethereum Foundation has connections to Switzerland. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about ETH Zurich, which is a public research university in Zurich, Switzerland, founded by the Swiss federal government in 1854. The Wikipedia entry says ETH Zurich is widely recognized for its influence in the progression of advancements in science and technology. In international rankings, it consistently places as one of the best universities worldwide, typically securing a position as one of Europe's top 3 universities behind Oxford and Cambridge. This is who we're talking about when we talk about the next item, not anything having to do with Ethereum. This is a university in Zurich. So here's the paper this highly esteemed university in Zurich wrote. And I'm just going to give you a few little pieces, but this will kind of give you a flavor for what's going on. So they say, in this paper, we try to get an understanding of the Solana protocol. However, this is not easy because the publicly available resources are insufficient to specify the details of the protocol. Moreover, the implementation has deviated in undocumented ways from the available protocol design description. Thus, the consensus rules and their implied security properties remain unclear. These tests seem to confirm our basic understanding that Solana does not fully achieve consensus. That is scathing because the one goal of blockchains is to achieve consensus. In this paper, we show how a single malicious validator, once elected as leader, might be able to halt the Solana blockchain. We also observe some inconsistent behavior, which is not readily explained by any of the consensus rules we are aware of. So they're saying Solana does not fully achieve consensus, and they show how a single malicious validator, if elected as leader, might be able to halt the Solana blockchain. And they go through and describe exactly the kinds of experiments they did to prove this out. And eventually they come to a conclusion down here. They say, in the absence of such a concrete implementation, it is accepted that centralized manual interventions will be required in the event of a malfunction. Underlying this assumption is the fact that the present duplicate handling was only first addressed in March 2021. They say Solana takes a non-standard approach to achieving state replication in view of possible adversarial failures, making strong assumptions about the failure cases that can arise in practice that seem to go far beyond the normal theoretical bounds for these problems. We suggest that duplicate handling is not fully handled by the consensus protocol. So this is very scathing. This is very scathing criticism of a blockchain. And you notice, what is Solana doing right now? Solana is having has had quite a day in the sun over the last little bit here in terms of the price going up. What we know about crypto is that the actual quality of the technology and innovation underlying the blockchain, sometimes in the short term, that's not what makes prices. Other things make prices, especially with these VC chains. And we've seen this very, very recently, just over the last little bit here with Solana. So going into 2024, there are going to be some challenges for crypto. We've still got these characters in the current administration and in the legislative branch, certain appointees of the current White House, and people like the Dragon who are going to continue to present challenges to crypto. But we've got all these other good things going on as well. We've got the ETFs, the long awaited ETFs. It's been years. Uh, People have been applying for crypto ETFs for years and years. That might be finally about to happen. We've got more presidential candidates talking about crypto who are very, very pro crypto than we've ever seen before. It's almost a prerequisite. If you're not the current administration, you almost have to be pro crypto now. Are any of the young up and coming candidates not pro crypto? Almost all of them are pro crypto. things are changing now on the international scene globally. We see more and more elections of leaders in places like Argentina, where the newly elected politicians are also choosing these very pro crypto stances. Crypto is like this virus, and I would argue that Cardano is the most virulent strain of this virus. People see when they can actually comprehend what's going on inside crypto, what crypto is actually all about, what crypto actually strives to do beyond it just being this asset with numbers that go up and down. When they understand the actual hard money use case of crypto, which is the crypto use case. We talk all the time about smart contracts and dApps and all these kind of things, all this technology that can be built on this very hard money. But the real base use case is as a very hard money, which is very useful for a lot of different nation states in the world, like Argentina, where hard money is a totally different path than the path they've been on in the past. We see headlines like this: Argentina minister, the new minister in Argentina, says contracts can now be settled in Bitcoin. Why not? Sure. The World Bank's not going to like it. The IMF's not going to like it. These international organizations are not going to like any country going to any kind of a Bitcoin standard or any kind of a crypto standard. Eventually, a Cardano standard. There will probably be a nation state one day who says, hey, we want to do all this innovative stuff. We're going to adopt not a Bitcoin standard, not an Ethereum standard, a Cardano standard. That could be something down the road. These are just the early days of this. But what is this going to look like in another 4 years? What does it look like in the next presidential election? Could there even be a presidential candidate who is anti crypto in another 4 years, in another 8 years? The world is just becoming more and more crypto centric. And I know we've been saying this, all of us in crypto have been saying this for the last decade, but we are still in the early days. And 2024 might turn out to be the best year yet for crypto. And the year following that, 2025, might be the best year ever for all of the other crypto assets besides Bitcoin. Maybe 2024 because of the halving event. Obviously that's a big landmark event for Bitcoin once again. But the rest of the crypto scene might see its greatest year ever in 2025. I know it seems like it's a long ways away. 2025 is a full 12 months away from us right now. But I think the next 24 months in crypto might be some of the funnest we've ever had. I hope you had a great 2023. Thank you for watching and listening to these videos. The only important part about these videos is that people listen to them and people watch them. That's the only important thing. The videos would be completely meaningless and valueless without the people listening to the videos. So thank you very much. If you listen to these videos in 2023 or any of the years prior, I truly appreciate it. I hope you had a great year last year. I hope you're looking forward to a great 2024, and I'll talk to you soon.